Sauk Prairie, and welcome to Coffee Chats. My name is Lindsay Giese, and I'm the Executive Director for River Arts Inc. And today I am joined by the Village of Prairie Du Sac Administrator, Alan Wildman. Cheers.
Morning.
Alan, did I get your title correct?
I wasn't even listening. What'd you say?
Village of Prairie Du Sac Administrator.
Yep.
Or is it? Yeah. Okay. That's how fancy it is. Okay.
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's village administrator, sometimes administrator, but you got it. The words were there.
Perfect. All right. I feel like I have to specify like Sauk Prairie. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of the nitty gritty of what it means to be an administrator, could you please share with the audience a little bit about you and how you came to be in Sauk Prairie?
Okay. I'm originally from Indiana. I grew up on my family's farm. And then while working on the farm, I started also working in high school, actually a little bit before high school, but through high school and into college for my hometown, working for them. So I was working both places. And then went to college in Indiana. After college, I got a job out in Washington, D.C., working for a U.S. congressman who was from Indiana, and did that. And then after he decided he had had enough of Washington, D.C., I said the same thing. And then I ended up moving to Wisconsin. And I've been here in Wisconsin now for over 20 years.
Wow.
And I've been
in Sauk?
No, I was in another community before. I came to Prairie Du Sac in 2007. So I've been here for 13 years.
Wow, okay. And this is the permanent home now, right? No plans
Yes.
to leave?
Yeah, I have no plans of leaving or anything, and at this point, no. So my wife and I and our son we love it here. So.
Yeah. If you weren't the village administrator, what would you be doing? Did you ever have another career path dream?
You know, and my wife hears this all the time, that I do miss the days of being on the farm, especially this time of year. And my family farm is basically, it's non-existent anymore. My dad retired from it a number of years ago, but this time of year when they're doing the harvesting that was always my favorite part of the farm, was doing that. And so, but it's
there are probably farmers listening who would welcome the help if you wanted to just
yeah. I still my in-laws have a kind of a farm operation too, and so, but I don't get as much involved there. They don't, a lot of their work that they have done, they'll do the custom farming kind of deal. They'll hire someone to come in and harvest their crops or what have you, but still get to be around to do some of the things that you would do on a farm and that, but not as much as I would have done if still being on one. So.
I mentioned, like teased at the very beginning about specifying it's the village of Prairie Du Sac, because there's also the village of Sauk City, two separate villages. Do they work completely separately, or are there ways that you work together, or like what is that relationship?
There's a lot of things that the villages work together on, and there's things that we do our own thing. But if you go back, I mean, all the way back to like the 1930s, when the villages started working together to do a joint sewage treatment plant, and that still is joint today. There's a joint commission that oversees that. The police department, that joined in 1949, and again, there's another joint commission that oversees the police department. There's the Sauk Prairie Taxi Service. That's a government ran deal that the two villages work together on and provide that service. So there's a number of things that we do. We share equipment. Sometimes you'll see our crews working with their crews or vice versa. Storm stuff that happens, we're right there with each other. Um, Vicky and we probably talk all the time, about different things, whether it be economic development things or what have you. Our comprehensive plan is a joint plan with the Village of Sauk City and the town of Prairie Du Sac. Our outdoor recreational plan is joint. So there's, a lot of things that we work on together. And we actually, with Sauk City and the town of Prairie Du Sac, we actually have an intergovernment committee that gets together on different topics and that too. So, yeah.
Well, we're early on, but I think I need to ask the toughest question I'll ask this whole interview, and it is the biggest question here in Sauk Prairie is, will the villages ever join?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there are advantages, there's disadvantages, but it's a process to do it. It's a long process. I've seen other communities that have went through the process. Some have went well, some have went not so well. But I think there's advantages of being two separate communities as well. Because I think when you point to examples, I mean, Baraboo, West Baraboo, Wisconsin Dells, Lake Delton. There's Adams and Friendship. There's Minneapolis and St. Paul. So we're not the only ones like this that have a street that separates us. So, and I'm not going to go into the history because, more of that history than I do. But
Well,
I just,
like rumor that maybe it's not a rumor, thing that I heard was that maybe it was a few years ago that there was actually a vote about this, and in the vote it was stated that we could not vote about it again for another 50 years. Is that a real thing that happened?
yeah, I think there was, and I've heard that too, and that there was a vote, and then afterwards one community said they didn't want to bring it up again for another 50 years or something like that.
So it's
And I
an
think,
official 50, like it's not like in writing that it
yeah, that I don't know. I haven't seen the document, but it's my understanding is it's kind of one of those things where you have to kind of say that too, because otherwise you're going to be bringing it up every year, and doing that
Yep.
and stuff. I mean, there was one community that not too far from here that they were looking at joining with the town that surrounded them. And so they went through the whole work and the foundation of how they're going to join their ordinances and how's this going to merge and all that. And then because they thought, well, the voters want to see how this is going to look. So when they go to vote, so they put all this time into it and everything. And then they went and voted on it and the voters voted it down. So you're like, because then, what it would happen. They would have voted it down too because they would say, well, we don't understand what it's going to look like,
Yep.
But
there's a lot that just goes into the discussion. So I get it. I get, saying let's not vote on this every year or discuss it every year because it gets in the way of the work you need to be doing.
Right, exactly. But I mean, it could happen. I can say right now, there's nothing on the Village of Prairie Du Sac's agenda to move the initiative forward or anything like that from our side, at least from the village board perspective anyway. So.
Got it. What is the number one complaint the village receives? Is there one that stands out?
Yeah, when's my leaves going to get picked up? That is probably the call that we get the most. And it's we have,
because don't you know the day that they decide to rake is the day the village should come, right? Like,
yeah, I know, and we just went by your house too. I understand that, and so you just raked them out, so we got to come around the block and pick it up again. Yeah, but that, our crews, they start on one end of the village and work their way through the village, and then when they get done on to the other side, they go right back and start again, and we run 2 machines at the peak like we're in right now. And usually that means that there's at least 3 to 4 members of the crew that are with those trucks out there doing it. And, but there are times that, and it's hard sometimes, because we know it happens, we come, with our leaf vacuum, and there's a car parked in front of the pile of the leaves, and so we go by. You get home, Lindsay, the car's gone, the pile's still there, your neighbors' piles are all gone. We're picking on Lindsay, you know. So that does happen. The other common mistake is that residents will put uh, the leaves and their branches in the same pile. And that's a huge no-no because that will damage our vacuum and will take it out of service. We've had that happen where we've had our machines down for a number of days because a limb gets sucked in there and it starts breaking things inside the machine. So if there's that, you know, stuff that's mixed in with the leaves, we're going to pass those up too.
How has it gone since the switch to all of like the refuse stuff going in bags instead of like the paper bags?
The bags have been going to the paper bags has been great. Before we would pick up in garbage bags, you know, so you'd put them in the garbage bags. Well, then our guys would have to, when they got back to the compost, they would have to open up those bags and dump the contents out. If you've ever put grass clippings in a garbage bag and then let it sit out in the hot sun for a few days and then open that bag,
Oh no.
yeah, you realize what these guys were going through when they'd open the bags, not to mention the time involved too of doing that. And then we had to dispose of the bags. So that was not a very good environment thing either. With the switch to the paper bags that are environmental friendly, the guys just throw them on the truck, throw them on the pile, and done with them. You know, because then they break down too, just like the leaves or the grass clippings do.
How has the village been impacted by COVID? What things have changed for you there?
You know, the things that have changed here is doing these, you know, things like this. You know, obviously most of our meetings now are through some virtual electronic means, whether that be our village board meetings or plan commission meetings, or even meeting with our engineers or staff has been done through these means. And I think the other thing is that doing things to protect our staff from not just wearing a mask, keeping distance from in between us, you know, but also, you know, affects, you know, having staff that may be working from home. We did that before the election here at the village hall. We had some of our staff working from home while the rest of us were here working the in-person absentee that was occurring. And our thought was there, then if the two of us that were working the in-person absentee end up, you know, coming in contact or you know, or testing positive for it, then when we vacate, the other two who are at home could come in and still continue on the in-person absentee and be here, you know, for the election and stuff. So those things like that you have to think about.
You mentioned the election. How did that go this year? Are there things that you think in the next elections that from this year, are there changes you think that will be permanent? Like, were there things that went really well that you think will stick, or were there things that were just horrible and you hope to never do it this way again?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we were very fortunate. We're very fortunate here. One, we have great staff that worked on the election and tremendous volunteers. The poll workers, I can't say enough about our poll workers that came in and, you know, and worked that day and not only November 3rd, but the other elections that we had this year too, through all of this. And yeah, there was things that we tried here and tried there, you know, to provide protection and distance and all that. We were very fortunate that we had good weather, that we were able to put election workers outside and just spread them out because in our building, we really didn't have enough room to be able to distance everybody out the way we need to. The November 3rd election, you know, that day we had an actual tent out in the parking lot. So that seemed to work out fairly well. It was a little chilly in the morning, but we had a great weather that day. So it really warmed up, but that seemed to work well for us. Um, but we realized that we need to look at more of a long-term solution for the space. And I expect in the next year or so that we'll be looking at that alternatives. The village hall to accomplish the separation that might be needed. And I think there's going to be an expectation even after COVID to have some room, for distancing and that. But yeah, I think we had, as far as when you look at the estimated age of our voters in the village of Prairie Du Sac, 85% of them turned out to vote in the November 3rd election.
Wow, that must be the highest ever.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty high going back to, maybe the highest was when they originally voted on whether or not Prairie Du Sac should become a village or not. That's probably I think they had 100% turnout then. So,
Wow.
but yeah, so there was, of those, we had actually, it was, I'm looking, it was 2,691 votes that were cast. A little over 2,000 of those were either mailed in, dropped off, or what we have known as the in-person absentee voting, which some call early voting. And that early voting is the 2 weeks prior to the election. And amazingly, a lot of people thought that was something new, that was something just done for COVID, but it's been in place for years that every election, the 2 weeks before, you can come in and vote in person, absentee at the village hall. So the absentee voting and voting in person absentee does require a little bit more work on the our side and a little bit more on the voter side, but I think a lot of voters felt more comfortable with doing it that way given the situation that we're in. So
Yep.
what my hope is that the turnout ratio will continue in future elections, because that was outstanding to have that great of a turnout, because it's very important that we do turn out the vote.
Something that I have in these elections is that every state and even county have different procedures regarding the absentee ballots. So in the village of Prairie Du Sac, when you were receiving those ballots early, when do those get counted here? Is it the day of the election, or what are the rules for that?
Sure. Under Wisconsin state law, we cannot open the absentee ballot envelopes until 7 o'clock the day of the election in the morning. So 7 a.m. the day. So how it works here is, those have to be, so each one of those envelopes has, when you come in the vote on election day, you walk up to the table, you show them your ID, and then they find you in the book, they turn the book around or pass the book to you, and you sign next to your name. Okay. So what happens with these absentee ballots is we take those envelopes, we give them to those poll workers sitting at the tables, and they have to go in and log into the book that those absentee ballots came back. So it's kind of like the same thing, but your signature is already on the outside of the envelope. So there's your signature. So they just put it in the book, and they also make sure that person, was supposed to get the ballot, and this is the only vote that's coming in from that person and all that. Then after that's logged into the poll book, then it goes over to the chief election worker or another election worker, and then that's when the envelope is open. And then he takes that ballot out, they get the ballots, then it goes right over to the machine and goes right into the machine at the same time as people who are doing their in-person. So the goal is what the poll workers try to do as a goal is to, when they have a low point during the day of in-person voting on November 3rd, for example, then they would work on those absentee ballots to get them logged in and get them into the machine. So but yeah, we can't, by law, state law, we can't open those envelopes and start counting them until 7 a.m. of the day of the election.
And
Now,
could you, what if you didn't finish entering those the day of the election? Is there time after that that you could have?
our poll workers here kept going. So when the polls closed at 8 o'clock, they were still working on finishing up those absentee ballots. So our poll workers here didn't finish until 10 o'clock that night, entering in the poll book and then, opening the envelopes and putting them into the counting machine. So we only had to go an extra 2 hours beyond the close of the polls. And typically in my experience, and I've been involved with elections for 20 years now, you just keep going until you're done counting. You keep going. Yeah. And then, yeah, that's what, I mean, not saying that you wouldn't, take a break or something like that, but yeah. And I know some communities maybe took a little longer break than others, but yeah.
Mhm.
And then you talk about how it's done different. There are a few locations in Wisconsin that have centralized locations to count ballots or handle absentee ballots and that as well. So, but we're not one of those. It's actually handled here at the village hall by our poll workers.
Because it's so exciting, and it looks like things are starting to wrap up a little bit. But the new Prairie Du Sac Park, can you talk about what is the name of it? What is going to happen there? Yeah, tell us more
Sure.
about that.
So it's Riverwalk Park and Overlook. The village wanted to kind of come up with a name that celebrated the area, the history of that. And so with the river, the idea here is celebrating the river, the bike trail, downtown, etc. And of course, the overlook has been a valuable piece of the downtown for years. So continuing to celebrate that. Yeah. So we're very excited about this park. It's been in the planning stages for a number of years. Got delayed a little bit for 1 year, and then here we are now doing it. We have received a lot of support, both from the individuals and the public to the state government giving us grants and the federal government giving us grants for it. So it's a great project, and having a lot of stakeholders such as Lindsay and your River Arts group has been a great help with this, but Eagle Overlook, the library, the chamber, and countless other groups that have been part of the Eagle Council, as well, putting this together. And yeah, it's starting to really come together now. We just had a virtual call yesterday on it, and probably within the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot of the finishing touches going on with it. There are a little hurdles here and there from COVID. There are some items that are back ordered or still in production that may not make it this fall yet and may have to wait till the spring to be installed. A lot of the landscaping will have to wait till the spring as well. But yeah, we're excited. So there's the Eagle Overlook is 3 times the size of what the original one was. It has a shelter there to get out of the wind and still be able to watch the eagles. It's going to have new scopes, viewing scopes, benches, a beautiful art piece. Lindsay, thank you for introducing us to the artist for that. That I think we're about 2 to 3 weeks away from the art piece being completed. Part of it had the stone foundation for that art piece has been installed. There's shelters, performance areas that have high expectation for River Arts to come in and use. And we've got the little overlook area that goes out to the river, that's going to have some tables on it. And like I said, the playground that's going to be down there. So, the whole idea of that when the Great Sauk Trail was in the planning stages, that area was picked to be a portal to get on and off the trail. And so we felt that we needed to uh, celebrate that connection with our downtown and the river, the eagles, and that, and thought this little neighborhood park, you might say, would be an excellent thing to do that with. And so I think it's going to have a lot of opportunities, and I know we've getting a lot of questions have been asked by trail users as they're going by. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, it will be. You mentioned our collaboration and your stakeholders in general. But I did want to give a shout out to your crew in general because they have done a lot of work on the trail and helped me out with a lot of the amenities and the installation. And they're just such a good group of guys, like to
Yeah.
the point that Troy got me a honorary, like the yellow, bright yellow shirt to wear so I can feel like I'm a part of the team when we go out.
Great.
So they have a good time, but they also do a great job and really help out. So I appreciate that. And everyone with the village is so great to work with. And I am going to be politically correct here and give a shout out to the Village of Sauk City and their crew because they also have helped me with stuff on the trail. So thank you to those workers as well. But yeah, it is a lot of fun. And there's just a lot of things that I have learned over the years that the village assists with that really maybe aren't even considered like village duties. But when there's a need and someone needs help, they step up and find a way to make it work. So that is very appreciated.
No, the comments are appreciated. Yeah, we've got a great group here. Our employees are fantastic. They really love what they're doing, and they may, not want to tell you necessary, but they do like little special projects that, especially the ones that they've done with you. They've enjoyed those and
Oh,
and
good.
stuff. So sometimes being out of your normal routine is good for the soul as well.
Good. That's good to hear. Are there any other future community expansions or projects that you are at liberty to discuss today?
Yeah, there's not really much out there right now. I mean, there's always opportunities out there, and there's always plans out there as well, but nothing in the immediate future or anything like that are on the table for execution to fulfillment or anything like that. The police station, the new police station is in the design phase. We're hoping that'll start construction next year, and so we're excited about that.
And then of course, park in the works.
Yeah, Culver Community Park. Talk about a fantastic project. I mean, you know, I know you and I have talked before about this amazing community, and just the the spirit of giving that this community has is just unbelievable. And when we started the conversation, when Marietta uh, started the charge, we really thought this was going to be a 10-year project, and our goal was to just go out, raise the money to buy the land.
Mhm,
Just buy the land, and then everything else will come over the next 10 years.
mhm.
And then, the shot in the arm came from the Culver family, and then it just exploded from there. And there's so many. I mean, you go out on the Friends of Sauk Prairie Parks and Recreation. I mean, they've got a list of all the donors and that. It's just amazing, that list. And I think they're over $9 million that's been raised for this project. So we're going to see a lot more of the amenities going in now than what we ever imagined would happen in the first few years. And so yeah, if you haven't been by the site, the dirt's being moved. The the streets and stuff are planned for next year to be going in, and other infrastructure improvements will be. So, but yeah, it's off and running. And we've also been, uh, we've received several, federal and state grants for that project as well. So I mean, it's when you look at that too, is the states, the grants that we received going back to the Great Sauk State Trail, Sauk City's Riverfront Park, our Riverwalk Park, the Culver Community Park. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of grant dollars that have come into this community in the last, 4 or 5 years. So,
Well, even on a much smaller scale, but when we added on to our building, we got some
oh,
state grant
yeah,
dollars as well that you helped us
yeah,
with.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Great. I mean, yeah, that's another one. Exactly. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, it's just so the eyes are on Sauk Prairie, you might say, and we're watching us, and they're seeing us grow, and they. I hope that I want to think that they like what they're seeing that we're doing here and accomplishing. So,
yeah. And I didn't know that they were at 9 million already, which is fantastic. But I know that their goal is around 12 million. So if people are watching this and
yeah,
interested in learning more
yeah,
and still being a part of this awesome project for the community, there still is room to give to add on to the amenities and just the wonderful opportunities there. So,
yeah, yeah. And the more that's coming in now, the more it can be done. And also it's just like any project. If you think about when you're remodeling your home, um, you know, if you don't do that one part and you push it off later, it does end up costing a little bit more when you do it later.
yeah.
So the same is true here with developing the park, that if the money comes in now and we're able to do more of the amenities now, we can, it's a little bit cheaper now. So,
Yep.
and you get more years of use out of it. So,
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me
yeah,
today, Alan, and giving us the lowdown on Village of Prairie Du Sac. And
yep.
for everybody watching, enjoy all that there is in the Village of Prairie Du Sac because it's awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers.